Ashe, greetings, grand rising, a grand day, and peace and goodwill to you all. Once again, my fellow natural, native, earthly humans. Yes, you, the earth's organic humans, and soulful humans, you, my fellow humans, with soul, the world over. Yes, you don't know. I am yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. May I say many thanks for stopping by and giving of your time to listen to another thought-provoking perspective with yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. Now, the title of this talk today is in the form of a question. And the question is this: does God exist? Another perspective, of course, by yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. Now, this is one of three often very sensitive and very emotionally charged questions that I, the Mystic Philosopher, have been asked time and time again. Almost every time I talk to somebody, they ask me that question: does God exist? And the other two questions are: one, does aliens exist? And two, and do you, mystic, believe in God? Now, these two questions I will answer. These two last questions: do aliens exist? And do you believe in God, or do I believe in God? These two questions I will answer in two future talks. But right now I will answer and address the question and the topic of this my talk: does God exist? And my very prompt, blunt, unapologetic, honest, and straightforward answer to this question is simply yes. God exists. And by extension, gods exist. Whatever or whomever you may or may not believe or conceive it, him, her, them to be, but the fact is, they do exist. And two of the subsequent and related questions that I have also been asked is: Mystic, how do you know, or how do I know that God exists? And how can I prove that God exists? And to answer that question, I would in turn ask the one asking me the question these two blunt questions: do you, sir or madam, exist? And how do you know that you, sir or madam, exist? And then I would proceed to ask myself these same two questions: do I, the Mystic Philosopher, exist? And the answer that I get from myself is yes, I exist. And the second question: how do I know? How do I, the Mystic Philosopher, know and can prove that I exist? And again, the answer that I got from myself is this: it is through my mental processing apparatus, my mental processing faculties called thinking. That is how I know, and that is how I can prove that I exist. In other words, I, the Mystic Philosopher, know that I exist because I think I exist. And honestly, I can't think of any other way to know or to prove that I really exist other than through thinking. For without my mental processing apparatus, or if you prefer, my mental processing faculties called thinking, how would I know and how can I know if or that I exist? And by the same token, without my mental processing apparatus, my mental processing faculties called thinking, how would I know that I do not exist? And without thinking, how do all of you, my listeners, know if you exist or that you exist? And for your information, the questioning of one's existence is not something that is new. It's not something that is irrational or crazy or weird. The late and renowned French philosopher named René Descartes was confronted with the same question. And his response was the same. And I quote, Latin, cogito ergo sum. English, translated in English, I think, therefore I am, unquote. This is also commonly known as the first principle of his, René Descartes, philosophy. Now, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, anything and everything that one can think of exists. Please let me repeat this for emphasis. From the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, anything and everything that one can think of exists. And if we can agree that this logic is correct and that it is a fact, then by this same logic and fact alone, we must also sensibly agree that God exists, and by extension, that gods exist, that angels exist, that demons exist, that devils exist, spirits or entities, that you and I exist. You name it or you name them, and it, them, or they exist. And it does not matter if you know or if you believe in it, him, her, or them, whatever you may believe and conceive it, him, her, or them to be, but the logically proven fact still remains that it, him, her, or them do exist. And to borrow a quote from the late alleged Eastern mystic and author of the book called The Third Eye, Lamsam Rampa, and I quote, that which is needs no proof, and that which is not cannot be proven, unquote. Now let me break this down into two separate parts for some of you, not for all of you, but for some of you, my listeners. Part one, that which is needs no proof. In other words, if it is, whatever it is, and we know that it is, how? By the mere fact that we are talking about it. By the same logic, we know that God exists by the mere fact that we are talking about who or what? God. We can't sensibly talk about something or someone that does not exist. Please think. Don't become emotional and think you know everything. But think, you cannot be talking about something or someone that does not exist. And if we can agree that this is true, then what sense, if any, does it make for any sane person to be trying to prove that it is? Part two, if it is not, it cannot be proven. If God is not, then what sense does it make trying to prove that it is not when we are talking about it? What sense does it make when we are trying to prove that God is not? God does not exist when we are talking about God. If at all you, my listeners, are real, logically thinking humans, I ask that you please contemplate and meditate on this statement and allow it to sink in before even attempting to dispute it or to refute it or to discard it. From my perspective, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the denial, the arguing, the conflict and contention over and against the existence of a God or of God, gods, Satan, demons, angels, devils, spirits, aliens, entities, extraterrestrials, dimensional and interdimensional entities, etc., are not from deep thinkers and truth seekers or fact seekers, but it is for those that are mentally immature. It is for those that are mentally fatigued or fragile. It is for the unwise. Yes, the simpletons, the feeble-minded, and the non-thinking ones among us. Those among us that even the ancient sages, as can also be found in the Adamic race history and holy book, also commonly called the Christian Holy Bible, that these sages, and in particular one sage called fools, and I quote from the Adamic race history and holy book according to Psalm 14 verse 1, and I quote, to the chief musician, a psalm of David, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Unquote. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Fool, and by extension, fools, here, from my perspective, meaning those among us that are mentally mature, docile, and unwise. The simpletons mentioned before, the feeble-minded, and the non-thinking one among us, aka the fools among us, had said in their hearts, meaning not in their necessarily in their the pump that pump blood over the body, but in their minds, yes, meaning in their minds, where they're thinking, because they're fools, their thinking or their thought process is inactive and static. They are the ones that are saying there is no God. And if at all you truly understand, and overstand all that I have said thus far, and if at all you are not one of the aforementioned, aka fools, if at all you are wise, then by no means would you or should you be caught in a confrontation or in an argument or in a debate with a fool trying to prove to him or her, or trying to prove to them that God, or anything for that matter, exists or not. And the ancient sages went as far as to give more reason, or in this case, one ancient sage by the name of David, according to the book, went as far as to give more reasons other than the aforementioned reasons that I gave, why they are saying there is no God. The sages, in this case David said, and according to the book said, and I quote, it is because they are corrupt. Read it for yourself. Psalm 14 verse 1, because they are corrupt, because they have done abominable works. It is because there is none that does do it. The Old King James Version said, do it good. Now we would say, does good. Unquote. And for your information, not because some of those that proclaim and are proclaiming, contend and are contending that God, gods, etc., do not exist, that there is no God. Not just because some of them might be some of the best system trained, well educated, and have all kind of impressive degrees, and the system's accredited credentials, and are in positions of authority and thus confident, well spoken. Yes, especially some from among us who can mimic your person's language. Well spoken. And they might even appear to be intimidating or appear intimidating on very convincing. Does that mean that they are not fools? Not at all. For as the late Robert Nesta Marley in one of his prophetic songs called Could You Be Loved said, and I quote, "Don't let them fool ya or even try to school ya. Oh no! Because why? We have got a mind of our own. So go to hell if what you're thinking isn't right." That's the late Robert Nesta Marley, unquote. So let me quickly revisit the answer I gave earlier at the beginning of this talk to the question in question, namely, does God exist? And to which my very prompt, unapologetic, honest, and straightforward answer was and is simply yes, God exists, and by extension, gods exist. Whatever or whomever or whoever you may or may not believe and conceive it, him or her or them to be. But the fact is that they do exist. As mentioned before, that from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, there's nothing that we can think of, there's nothing that we can talk about or imagine that does not already exist, period. In other words, everything is. And the fact that we are thinking of it, the fact that we are imagining it, the fact that we are talking about it, means that it has to exist, even if the only place that we may be able to identify its existence is in our minds. And even if one were to go as far as to say that it is only a figment of our imagination, the fact still remains that what? It exists. For example, the religion and ideology called atheism meaning the group of people that believe, keyword here, please pay attention, believe that there is no God. Gods. Believe that there is no God, God's devil, or devils, etc. An atheist from that group will argue very strongly against and will vehemently deny the existence and even the possible existence of a God, or of gods and devil or devils, etc. Then you have the theists. They have the religion or belief system called theism. Theism, meaning the people who believe in the existence of God, the gods, devil, etc., angels, etc. And that there are many evil entities. They also believe that there are many evil entities or evil spirits called devils and demons, chief of which they call Satan, the devil, that is supposedly the arch enemy or the antithesis of God. Atheists will also argue very strongly for and will vehemently defend his or her faith and beliefs in the existence of a God, gods, a devil, and devils. Theism or this or a deist, on the other hand, are people or person who believe in the existence of a God or of a supreme being or of a creator who they also argue and believe does not give a damn about us, nor will he, she, or it intervene in the affairs of the universe. That's the belief system of a deist. In other words, from this we may interpret that the deists believe that we humans have to solve all our perceived problems for and by ourselves. And finally, for now, agnosticism. An agnostic meaning a person who believes that it is possible to prove it's rather that it is who believe that it is impossible to prove that God or devil exists. One may attempt or one may interpret the position of an agnostic to mean that they believe that both the thing called God and the thing called devil exist, but it is impossible to prove conclusively with the human mind and reasoning that God or Satan exists. Now, those are 4 belief systems. Now, from my perspective, both the atheist, the theist, the deist, and the agnostics are all talking, arguing, debating, denying, defending, contemplating, and even believing in the same thing or the same things. And that same thing or things that they all have in common, the same thing that they all have in common, whether they agree or disagree, is what? God or devil or the devil, God or the devil. Their belief is just a matter of varying degrees. In other words, they are only arguing on the opposite sides of the same one thing. This idea might be somewhat challenging for some of you, my listeners. So please let me try to explain it from another angle so that more of you may get the proper understanding, and understanding of what I've just said. Listen carefully now. Before we speak, we must first have something to talk about. Before we open our mouth, we must have something to talk about. Whatever that something or thing is, activated common sense will tell us that it must exist somewhere in the known or in the unknown universe. When that thing first impinges on our mind, it is known as an inkling. It is also known as a notion and an impulse. When other related and like-minded inklings, notions, or impulses are attracted and added to it, it then becomes what is commonly known as an idea. When other related and like-minded ideas are attracted and added to it, it then becomes a thought. Here we have at least 4 options at our disposal, which are, number 1, we can choose to remain silent with our thoughts. We can do nothing and keep that thought to ourselves. Number 2, if we are in tune and aware of our mental and spiritual powers and our spiritual abilities, and if at all our capabilities are activated, we may choose to communicate that thought telepathically, meaning we may transmit that thought through the ether to someone who is tuned into our telepathic frequency. Number 3, we may choose to express that thought in a work of art, example in sculpture, that's my language, please forgive me, in sculpture, a painting, etc. And number 4, we may choose to communicate and express our thought in the spoken or written words. And a thought that is expressed using the spoken or written words is called a sentence. From this explanation, one may agree that everything that we may be able to think of exists, and it is. It was, and it shall also forever be. How we interpret, know, understand, overstand, and make use of all that is and all that we can think of may be up to us, or may be up to that which program or inspire us. So now, hopefully, you know, understand, overstand, and agree with me, yours truly, I, the Mystic P, that the thing called God, and by extension gods, etc., if you agree, then my question to you, my people, is this: which God, gods, or whose God or gods are you summoning and invoking for your rescue, for your defense, for your protection, for your health and for your prosperity, for your well-being, and above all, for a speedy? Which God or gods, or whose God or gods are you summoning and invoking for a speedy and just retribution on all our enemies, etc.? I ask that you please think before you answer. And are you sure? Now, this is the end of today's talk on the thought-provoking topic, does God exist? By yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. However, I will have much more to say and much more thought-provoking perspectives and insights to share with you on this and many other topics in the near future. So please stay tuned. Your feedback, your feed-forward and comments are welcome and encouraged. In the meantime and between time, here's willing that in your becoming, you be more and more and much, much more, and definitely not less, aka bless. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, 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 I say.